This module discusses fuels reduction methods used in forests and woodlands, including thinning, pruning, slash treatments, and prescribed fire. We'll talk about each of these methods in the next section. There are a variety of reasons for thinning, the practice of removing some trees in a stand to favor the remaining trees. From a fuels reduction standpoint, thinning mimics the natural stand development process in which subordinate trees are shaded out, become stunted, and may eventually die, as well as the process of understory fires in which smaller trees in a stand are killed while larger ones survive. In thinning from below, larger codominant and dominant trees are left, and these are the most fire-resistant trees in the stand. All other things equal, heavier thinning leads to greater fire resistance. Thinning which removes subordinate trees is often called thinning from below. In this example, most dominant and codominant trees have been left, while intermediate and overtop trees and some codominants have been removed. To be effective as a fuels treatment, the cut trees need to be removed from the site and the leftover slash must be treated or removed. This is a stand marked for low thinning. The blue flag trees are to be removed. Some are merchantable, but most are too small and will have to be turned into firewood. Pruning or limbing involves removal of lower tree branches, which are a type of ladder fuel. It can be a very effective method for reducing ladder fuels. A good pruning height to aim for is 8 to 10 feet. For trees with branches that droop way down to the ground, you may need to prune them higher than 10 feet. On larger or mature trees, you will often find that the lower limbs are dead. You can prune right up to 10 feet or more without removing much foliage and affecting the tree's growth. However, on small trees, you need to be careful not to remove too much foliage when limbing them up. One rule of thumb is to avoid removing more than 1/3 of the live crown in any one pruning. That prevents the tree from losing vigor due to the loss of foliage. As with thinning, the pruning slash should be dealt with if you want to reduce the fire risk. Otherwise, there's an increased risk until the material breaks down. Pruning is often combined with thinning. However, it's very labor intensive, so is often concentrated near the home or other high-risk, high-value areas. Thinning and pruning often generate a lot of material, called slash or activity fuels, that can increase fuel loads and fire hazards, at least in the short term. Effective fuels reduction thus requires slash treatment. Listed here are common slash reduction methods. We'll talk about each one in the next several slides. Utilization of small trees cut down in thinning will help reduce fuel loads out in the woods. So what can you do with the material? Well, firewood is one obvious possibility. In some cases, there may be enough sawlog-sized material to conduct a timber sale, helping to offset the cost of the fuels reduction or even generate a profit. More often, however, there are few if any sawlogs generated in a fuels treatment. Posts and poles can be used for fencing and construction, as well as firewood. Lop and scatter is a common slash treatment method. Basically, it involves cutting off branches of larger trees that have been felled and cutting up the logs into smaller pieces and leaving those where they lay or scattering them about the woods. The idea is to distribute the material and get it into close contact with the ground where it will decompose more rapidly. Lop and scatter doesn't reduce the amount of fuel on site, it just redistributes it. Basically, ladder fuels are converted into surface fuels. This is a cheaper way of dealing with slash than, for example, piling and burning, but it isn't as effective for reducing fuels. In fact, it may significantly increase the fuel loading and fire hazard until the material breaks down. In dry forests, this could take years or even decades. In moist forests, the process occurs much more quickly. Lop and scatter is probably best done in more remote locations where the overall fuel hazard is lower and resulting slash loads are light, or in moist forests where the breakdown is rapid. Pile and burn is a common practice following thinning and pruning. The basic process for building a pile includes gathering small material, like kindling, and putting it at the bottom of the pile and then laying larger material on top of that. If the piles are to be burned later, plastic may be placed on top to keep it dry, with some additional material placed on top of the plastic to hold it in place. Piles can be made by hand, as shown in this photo, or by machine. If you are thinning and pruning on a burn day, you can start a small pile and then just add material as you go. This avoids the need to cover the pile with plastic and come back to it later. This is called swamper burning. Close monitoring of the pile is important. Don't just leave it and walk away. Pile and burn is a very effective fuels reduction method. However, it can be expensive. On a contract basis, cutting, piling, and burning can easily cost $500 to $1,500 per acre, or even more. In many areas, smoke management restrictions sharply limit the times when you can burn. This can pose a challenge to getting all the material treated. Take care to make sure piles are completely extinguished when you are done. Avoid constructing piles near stumps or tree roots, where the fire can smolder underground, only to emerge later as a holdover fire. Escaped debris burns are actually one of the leading causes of wildfire. Chipping can be very effective at reducing and redistributing fuels. It's very labor-intensive and expensive on a per-acre basis. As a result, it's usually done only near homes or in situations when burning isn't an option. Large chippers operating on flat ground with good road access are the most efficient. The chips make excellent material for mulch, road, and trail surfaces. Hauling away the material may also be an option. In some locales, there may be biomass electricity plants that will accept or perhaps even pay for woody material delivered to their facility. There are typically also sites where woody material can be dumped, usually for a fee, where it is then made into compost. This can be a good option for landowners who don't want to burn, but it is very labor-intensive. Prescribed underburning can be a very effective fuels reduction method. In fact, thinning followed by prescribed fire is the gold standard of fuels treatments. It can be very cost-effective compared to other fuels treatment methods when done on a large scale. This photo shows a stand in the Sierra Nevada a few years after prescribed underburning. Note the low level of surface and ladder fuels in the understory. In many cases, fuel loads are too high to introduce prescribed underburning without first stepping down fuels with a mechanical thinning treatment. For example, the forest might be thinned and the resulting slash piled and burned. Then the stand can be underburned relatively safely. Here is a stand that has been thinned. Note the fine fuels. Here's the same stand after underburning. Note that many of the fine fuels have been consumed. Prescribed burning, especially underburning, is risky with high potential liability. For this reason, it is seldom undertaken on private parcels. Smoke management issues also make it challenging to implement. For those interested in conducting an underburn, a professionally developed burn plan is a must. The Oregon Department of Forestry should be contacted well in advance to discuss plans and obtain needed permits.